Greetings, and thank you for taking the time to check into our Watersource Ministries Missionary Training and Support Center plan. As we go through here, you're going to notice how low-tech this is. Well, we're not a very high-money ministry. We just kind of use whatever's at hand. So I want to apologize for that at the beginning. But don't let that dissuade you from what we're trying to do here. We have a very big plan, and we have a very big God that we serve. So we think that this whole thing will work. And I believe that maybe you visiting this might be one of those divine appointments so that you can consider whether to give to such a project as we're trying to start. Our purpose here at Watersource Ministries is basically this. We want to preach the gospel. And that's what we've been doing. We also want to train missionaries to preach the gospel. We want to train a missionary to take an indigenous person that they minister to, preach to them, and then teach that person how to preach the gospel to their own people. We also would like to have our missionaries take usable agricultural techniques to indigenous cultures so that they can use every square inch of soil or space for food production. Our further purpose is having to do with where the farm is going to be located at. Wherever that farm resides, we want to provide agricultural training to the community where it is. We also want to provide food to the needy in the community in which this farm resides. We'd like to create a food storage program to be used during times of disaster and need. We also want to reach out to the community in which the farm resides with the gospel through open-air preaching, one-to-one witnessing, gospel tract distribution, as well as community Bible study. And we want to train our missionaries to do the same wherever they go. Now, who we are is we're a lot of different people with a lot of different skills. We're experienced evangelists. We are apologists. In other words, we can defend the word. We know how to do that. We are street preachers. We go out on the street and we, one-to-one or open air, whatever the Lord provides, we preach the gospel to lost people. We are also Bible teachers and countercult specialists. We very routinely make it a point to go to different fairs and gatherings where cultists come together, whether they're Jehovah's Witness or whether there's some New Age fair or whatever, and we preach the gospel. We also have experienced missionaries. The couple that will be managing the farm have actually spent 20 years in the mission field in West Africa. They raised a family there. We are experienced gardeners, livestock pasture, and farm managers as well. And to give you an idea of what we're talking about, my wife and I, who I'll be introducing to you shortly, we tore up our entire yard. We don't have grass. All of it is used for growing space, and we've been able to produce more food than we can use, which has allowed us the added blessing of being able to give food away to people. Now, our mission is summed up in our three-word statement on our website, www.watersourceministries.org. And what it says is preach, teach, and connect. And that's what we do. To fulfill that, we broke our mission into 4 phases. Phase 1 was to establish locally within Colorado as an evangelical outreach that spreads the gospel through street evangelism. We've done that. That's what we continue to do that, and we will always continue to do that. Phase 2, we want to help plant, connect, and support street evangelism teams and people throughout Colorado, and we've been blessed to be able to do that and continue to do that as well. Phase 3 involves, that's where we are now, involves taking a potential missionary and training them for the work of fulfilling the Great Commission through biblical evangelism and agricultural training. And then Phase 4, which we're not there yet, this is long term. Phase 4 will be to support missionaries in the mission field, to support them when they're on furlough, and during their reintegration to American society when they return from the mission field for good. Now, where we are now, in the mission that we've been given, we have and continue to fulfill the first 2 phases. We have preached the gospel on the street, at festivals, wherever people congregate, county fairs, etc. We have trained groups and people in biblical evangelism using the example of Jesus and the apostles. And to get an idea of that, when you get a chance, I recommend a book called Hell's Best Kept Secret. That's what really fired us up to be in this ministry that we're in today. We've also been instrumental in connecting or establishing witnessing teams along the Front Range, and that's all the way from Fort Collins, Colorado, all the way down to Pueblo, Colorado. And these groups go out faithfully at least once a week to wherever people are congregating, usually the same place, and they preach. They do open-air preaching, they do one-to-one witnessing, gospel tracts, etc. Another thing is that we teach people how to share their faith biblically. Now, because we're in northern Colorado, that creates a bit of a situation if somebody in Colorado Springs, which is southern Colorado, calls up and says, hey, we'd like you to put on an evangelism class for us. But the beauty of it is with the teams that we've helped establish throughout the state, we can refer those people because they are also teachers of biblical evangelism as well. So we can refer them to people that are in their area that may even be in their own church and don't realize it. Now our next step is phase 3, and we're ready to begin the missionary training. The missionary training center that this will be done on will be operated on a large working farm. During the day, the missionary interns will work the farm. They'll learn sustainable agricultural techniques such as soil mediation, animal traction plowing, that's a horse and plow, seed harvesting, etc. This is going to equip them to be part of a third world community in the U.S., like an Indian reservation where there's third world conditions existing even today, or internationally. The produce grown at the training center will be sold to the community through a community-sustained agriculture program, which I'll go into more depth later. In the evenings and on weekends, the interns will be given biblical teaching and mission-related training. The mission-related training will cover aspects of missionary work, such as raising a family in the mission environment, going into a new culture for the first time where they may have never met an American, and advanced in wilderness first aid, maybe even up to the emergency medical technician level, at least the first responder level. The interns will be thoroughly trained in methods of biblical evangelism and outreach, and this will help the missionary to be able to teach, again, an indigenous person to preach the gospel to their own people. If you want to see how that works in action, that's what Gospel for Asia, K.P. Yohannan, has been doing for years, because they discovered that American missionaries had a hard time preaching the gospel to, native people in India. They didn't necessarily accept it as readily as they do from their own people. So the evangelism training will involve practical application in street witnessing, open-air preaching, and counter-cult response, as well as verse-by-verse, in-depth study of the Word, which will go on the entire stay that they're there. Now, the farm team, who we are, that's me there with the bandana and the mustache. My name's Steve Bauer. I'm the director of the ministry. I'm in charge of evangelism training and Bible instruction, as well as parts of the medical training. My background, my experience is I'm a founder of Watersource Ministries, one of 3. I'm an associate pastor for Calvary Chapel in Loveland, Colorado. I am also a police chaplain for the Loveland Police Department. I'm an evangelist, a Bible teacher, and a street preacher. And that means that we're out quite frequently talking to total strangers about the gospel of Jesus Christ. I graduated from the School of Biblical Evangelism from Living Waters. Ray Comfort, the man who wrote Hell's Best Kept Secret, founded that ministry. I'm also a bronze certificate holder in Koinonia Institute Bible Training Program, which is a accredited program through Louisiana Baptist University. I also have 20 years of field experience as a paramedic. I'm a paramedic instructor for Ames Community College, and that's where my medical background is primarily. I'm also trained in critical incident stress management and biblical counseling through my church. My wife and I have been very active in the whole homegrown food movement. You may have also heard it as Grow Food, Not Lawns. We've been very active in that. Our yard gets showcased quite a few times by some of those groups on their blogs. This is my wife, lovely lady here, and she's milking a goat in that picture. Her name is Christine. She is our communications director, and she's also heavily involved with the evangelism training. She grew up in Niger, West Africa. Her family spent 20 years in the mission field. She also graduated from Bethel College in Indiana with a Bachelor of Arts in American Sign Language Translation. She's the editor of our Watersource newsletter. It's a quarterly newsletter that you can sign up for at our website. She is the founder of the Talmudine Outreach, which is our Fort Collins outreach to the folk on Friday nights in Old Town, part of Fort Collins. We do open-air preaching there. We do one-to-one witnessing, etc. She is a graduate of the School of Biblical Evangelism with Living Waters. And like I said before, with me, she and I are both very active in the homegrown food movement. This next couple is Lynn and Sandy Philpott. Lynn is on the right, and he is going to be our farm and produce manager. He'll be doing all the crop management, watering, all that stuff. He'll be managing the CSA program, and he'll be doing all the oversight and planning for it, as well as being involved with the missionary training. His experience is that he raised a family in the mission field as a missionary for 20 years in West Africa. And yes, if you haven't noticed the facial resemblance between them and my wife, these are my in-laws. In his time in Africa, he was the director of a rural health project where they were basically helping sick people. He dealt with hospital maintenance, but he also did a lot of water conservation and water redirection so that crops could better utilize the water that was available. He was very heavily involved with the farming there. He has a Bachelor of Arts in Foreign Missions from Moody Bible Institute. He has a certificate from Laterno University in aircraft and power plant maintenance. He also trained in agriculture from CSU and horticulture from Front Range Community College in Fort Collins. Now the one on the left is his wife. Her name is Sandy Philpott. She is the mission training director. She also deals with intern relations, admissions, missionary training, and healthcare training. Her experience, again, like her husband, they were in West Africa for 20 years where she raised a family. She specialized in education and in healthcare there. She has a diploma in Christian education from Moody Bible Institute. She also has a bachelor's of nursing from North Park College in Chicago, and she's still continuing to practice as a nurse in Greeley, Colorado. This is Jocelyn. Jocelyn Philpott is the youngest daughter of Sandy and Lynn Philpott, and the little sister to my wife, Christine. She is going to be taking care of the livestock. She'll be doing all the dairy planning and the breeding and the care and pasture management, all the things related to the livestock, as well as the soil maintenance and management, using the livestock to do that. Her experience, she grew up in the mission field. She was there for 20 years with her folks. She has a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Biology. She trained on the World Hunger Relief Farm in Texas, where she learned small animal and livestock care as well as management of a raw goat milk dairy. She is currently training on an organic cow dairy in pasture rotation and dairy management. This is Jonathan Jolly, and he is our counter-cult specialist. He also is very heavily involved with street evangelism. He trained under Bill Hansberger, that's Dr. Hansberger, with Haven Ministry, and he dealt with counter-cult outreach. And what Haven Ministries does is they take, like if a family has somebody who is basically, for lack of a better term, been brainwashed by a cult, the family can contact them, and these folks deprogram the cult victims. So he's been heavily involved with that. He's the founder of the Reaching Boulder Outreach, which is a booth in in Boulder on the Pearl Street Mall. And it's right across from the Buddhist Training Center. He's also the developer of the Eurokarma Gospel Tract program. The Eurokarma basically has a Wikipedia-style website that goes along with the Gospel Tract that gives them the in-depth information about the words on the back of the Gospel Tract. He's currently in development of what's called Evangepedia and Ask J, which are one is for potential street preachers and evangelists to, if they have questions about street evangelism, they can go there. And then Ask J is for non-believers, so that they can ask questions and get answers regarding the Christian faith. He is an expert in counter-cult evangelism. He is an evangelist and a Bible teacher, and he's also a member of our Metanoia Outreach in Denver, Colorado, which is 16th Street Mall street preaching, street outreach held by one of our board members who I'll introduce you to later. Our board of directors, I am on the board. My wife and I hold one vote. One of the fellow founders, his name is Rick Bush. He is on our board of directors. He is also a street preacher. He is a firefighter and a paramedic, as well as one of the instructors and developers of the Spiritual Fire Academy, which is our street witnessing and evangelism program that we put on for churches and studies around the state. Paul LaFleur is also a founder of Watersource Ministries. He is also a street preacher, and again, he is one of the developers of our Spiritual Fire Academy. Kevin Blankenship is the pastor of Calvary Chapel in Loveland, Colorado. He's also my own pastor. He is the former owner and CEO of multiple successful tech ventures. He also is the founding pastor of Calvary Chapel, Loveland. He did the church plant here. And then there's Mark Schotten, who is an evangelist, and he is the founder of the Metanoia Outreach that we helped establish in downtown Denver. He also does a lot of the evangelism training for Calvary Chapel, Aurora, Colorado. Now, as far as what the market is, the market summary kind of goes like this. We broke it down into the evangelistic, the missionary, and the agricultural markets. What is that to a ministry? So the evangelistic market, that is the fulfilling of the Great Commission outside of the church building. We believe that's greatly ignored by most churches in the U.S. And what I mean by that is a lot of people are willing to bring somebody to their church, but that really puts a strain on the pastor, because now the pastor has to cater his message for non-believers or potential believers when he should be spending most of his time feeding the sheep. So again, this seems to be a wide open market. As far as missionary, there are several mission training programs, but we have not found one with a strong emphasis on the gospel presentation as Jesus demonstrated. That is an example that you can see in John chapter 4 with the woman at the well. Jesus used the law to bring the knowledge of sin. He showed the woman that she was in an adulterous relationship, and then he revealed himself and his grace. And we believe that's what needs to happen, and it isn't happening. So again, a wide open market. And then agricultural. CSA programs provide local produce to local people and businesses, and that's what we want to establish as a CSA. It's still a new but rapidly growing industry, but there are currently not even close to enough CSAs to match the demand. One of the CSA farms, one of the larger ones in Colorado, is called Grant Farms, and last year they had 1,500 subscribers. This year they're planning on having 3,000 subscribers, and they will be turning people away because they still don't have enough to take on that many people. Now, our goals I've also broken down into evangelistic, missions, and agricultural. Our evangelistic goals are having to do with our training and equipping enterprise. And that's something we have established, and we're going to continue doing that as long as we're a ministry. We're going to continue putting on the Spiritual Fire Academies for local churches and groups. And we're going to produce Bible-based and evangelism-minded missionaries for the mission field who can witness to an indigenous person, train that person to witness to their own people, and teach the Bible. Our mission-related goals, in the first year we would like to take in 4 to 8 potential missionary interns. The interns will attend a 1-year internship. They'll be trained in the Bible with verse-by-verse study and application of the Word. Also, they will be prepared for what to expect in a third world mission field, as well as the mission field in our own communities. And when I say that, I'm talking about our neighbors, the people we work with, the people at the coffee shop that we visit once a day. These are all mission fields. At the end of the internship, the intern will be able to fulfill the role of pastor, preacher, minister, confidant, Baptist, whatever. They will be able to fulfill that role in a third world environment. As far as our agricultural goals and objectives, we want to establish the CSA enterprise as soon as possible within the first year. We want to establish niche produce and livestock enterprise to northern Colorado restaurants and markets. We want to establish a food bank to bless local families in need, as well as homeless programs like the Open Door Outreach in Fort Collins or the Jesus Saves Denver Rescue Mission in Denver. We want to also establish a program to take in bumper crops from other programs, other farms, when they've exceeded what they've sold. And in other words, some farms will sell X amount of produce, but then they have a very small amount left over that they can't do anything with. Last year, this is 2009, so in the fall of 2008, one farm had an overabundant crop, and when they got done selling the majority of their crop, this overabundance, they were going to let it go. So they ran an ad in the paper, and they said, if you will come and pick it yourself, you can have it for free. Well, in the course of 48 hours, they had about 30,000 people show up, and needless to say, they ran out of food real fast. So being a 501(c), we can take a bumper crop like that, take it in, and give that farm a tax write-off, and then we can take that food, we can can it, dry it, store it, and have it available for our food bank enterprise to give out to blessed families and groups in need. The Community Sustained Agriculture is the CSA, is basically a program where people pay an annual subscription based on the number of persons per household for produce shares as they come available on the farm. So as the growing season goes on, they come by once a week and they pick up their share. In the search for local, healthy, and organic produce, CSAs currently in northern Colorado cannot keep up with the demand. There are a lot of people that want local, homegrown food. We also want to delve into niche agriculture with this farm as well. That is, we'll produce specialty produce that will be available to natural food stores, supermarkets, and restaurants. These things will include locally harvested honey, heirloom and unique tomatoes and peppers from our greenhouses, which we have the greenhouses, we just need the property to put them on. And then we'll also have a small goat dairy where people can purchase a share of the goat, thus they can have the milk that it produces. Our financial plan is actually very simple. We serve a big God, and I mean, He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. So we believe that He'll provide. We do that through prayer. We believe He'll do that through people giving individual blessings to our ministry, being able to partner with ministries and churches across the country, as well as the earnings from the CSA and the niche enterprises that we want to establish. But we believe that God will provide, and that's why you're watching this, to see if you are one of those people that the Lord will use to bless this ministry so that we can bless the world. So that's what we're asking you to do. As far as what we'll do with those finances, we have a very good accountability board, so we will be very accountable. We will be very responsible with what we are given. And we will invest it much like the talents that Jesus spoke of. We want to invest every talent we have and every talent that we're given. And we're asking you to invest your talent in this. Once we have those talents in hand, a part of our investment is our philosophy is basically going to be give until it hurts for the glory of God's kingdom. If it seems like it's a godly thing, if we feel led by the Spirit that this is something that we need to put money into, then we're going to. And again, we'll be responsible. We'll do so prayerfully, and we'll do so with the accountability of our board watching over us. To put it another way, we're not in this to make money or a profit. This is not about a business. This is a vehicle to preach the gospel, nothing more. We are in this to seek and save that which is lost for the kingdom. Jesus said, how can you say you love me and not do the things I tell you? Well, what did Jesus come to do? To seek and save that which is lost. That's what all of our finances are going to go into. And again, this farm is a vehicle that we can do that with. As far as resource requirements, technology-wise, we're not going to need a lot, because the interns are going to be put into a lifestyle that will somewhat reflect the third world reality that they will be living in as missionaries. However, we feel that a web presence and web access is going to be necessary for communications and training. Personnel requirements, with the exception of the interns, we have those positions filled. They just need to start doing the work now. We do some of the work of the ministry, which is preaching, but as far as the farm is concerned, we're just waiting for the farm, and we're ready to go. once that financial gift is in place. Resource requirements, $3.5 to $4 million to start, and that's giving us a cushion so that we can have operating expenses once we purchase the property. The reason it's so high is because Colorado land prices are very high. So the properties we're looking at, $2.5 million to start. That actually meets the needs of what we want to do. As far as external requirements, initially we're looking at equipment rental, possibly equipment purchase, heirloom seeds and non-genetically modified seeds, as well as livestock. And believe it or not, that will actually be the cheaper of the purchases we'll be doing. Now, risk and reward. Any venture can be measured by its risk versus the reward. Well, the risk is this. We don't think there is one. We're doing this for, we believe, according to God's will. We're doing it for His glory. And if we're in His will, and if we're doing it for His glory, it will not fail. If we are not doing it according to God's will, then it will fail. And you can read Acts chapter 5, starting in verse 34. Gamaliel said much the same thing to the Sadducees at that time. He said, if these men are from God, they're going to keep going, and you're fighting against them, and you're fighting against God. If they are not of God, they will fail. And that's what we believe about this. We believe this is of God, and we would love to have your support in it. As far as the rewards, well, the rewards are huge. I mean, we're talking crowns in heaven, right, that we can throw at the Lord's feet when He calls us up. But in a more temporal sense, the rewards are a self-sufficient farm that will prepare missionaries for the mission field to be biblical preachers, as well as a refuge for returning missionaries to reintegrate into U.S. society. That last part, that's phase 4. We're not there yet. But once phase 3 is done, that's our next step. Our key issues that we're looking at right now, near term, is getting the property and planting the first crop by May 1st, 2009. That's where we are. The perfect piece of property that we've looked at is actually being scoped out and possibly under contract by an environmentalist group that wants to buy it. We have a couple other fallback positions, but this is the perfect piece of property for what we're talking about. So that's a near-term issue that we have to look at. We know that if we show up with cash, they'll give it to us. So we also want to establish our first crop so that it can be used in the food enterprise program. We want to be able to start blessing families as soon as we can. So those are our near-term key issues. Our long-term key issues will be making sure that this farm is established off-grid, self-sustaining, and it continues to train people to fulfill the Great Commission, because, again, that is our number one primary role, is preaching the gospel. With that, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for the time that you took to watch this presentation. I hope you will prayerfully consider supporting us. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. That information is available on our website, on our contact page, as well as our phone number. Our web address is www.watersourceministries.org. Contact us at any time. We'd love to hear from you. God bless you, and have a great day.